Chester Moore, Executive Editor of Texas Fish and Game here with Texas Fish and Game Editor at Large and in charge, Ted Nugent.
Very large, the
And
editorship.
besides the ponytails and the love for hunting, Ted,
And spirit.
And spirit, we do share another thing in common is Fred Bear. He was always a hero of mine growing up, and Ted had the great honor of knowing Fred Bear and spending some of Fred's last days with him in Michigan.
That's right. It's quite a story. I was born in '48, and Fred had a few years under his belt in promoting bow hunting in our home state of Michigan, even though Fred came from Pennsylvania. And my dad, coming out of World War II, was looking for that spirituality. He probably wouldn't have used the word spirituality, but we know now that that's what they were seeking after that terrible war against evil that we luckily were victorious in. And to celebrate that victory, he latched onto this tall, lanky, bow hunting dude named Fred Bear in Michigan. And my dad got a bear, so he was already an archer and a bow hunter before I was born. And as all kids in those days, the Davy Crockett TV shows and Cowboys and Indians, we all had bows and arrows and the suction cup arrows when you were a kid, and developing somewhat of an archery regimen in camps and Boy Scouts and Explorer Scouts. But it was meeting Fred Bear around 1952, 1953. I was just a little boy on our annual northern excursions in Michigan to go bow hunting. And Fred had just moved his bear archery, just a fledgling company, a fledgling concept really, into Grayling, Michigan. So the Nugents would stop at the little shack, it wasn't as big as this garage, where Fred would assemble his bows and experiment with wood and glass laminations and creating his bear razor head and this new robotic technology of cutting handles and cutting the steel and welding the steel for the razor heads. And so my little youthful fascination with archery exploded because of the genteelness and the contagious spirit that Fred, emoted. By the time I was an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old kid, I was addicted to the mystical flight of the arrow. Luckily, in the area of Detroit I was raised, there was a little river, the Rouge River, cruised through our neighborhood with a lot of wildlife, pheasants and quail, rabbits and skunks and squirrels and possums and raccoons, and a lot of waterfowl. And by that time, I had a little Shakespeare longbow and some cedar arrows that we get at Miller's Feed Store in Redford that carried all of Fred's stuff. So I was just fascinated by all things archery, and obviously Fred Bear and Howard Hill were my heroes. But to get to spend time and eat cherry pie and milk with Fred at the Grayling restaurant, growing up was soul-forming. It was a confluence. It's like being able to jam with Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley as I was pursuing my musical stuff, which eventually came. But that's how powerful a role that Fred played. And then it all culminated in being embraced by Fred and Henrietta, spending time in their home, and constantly on the phone with Fred, and visiting Fred as his invited guest at his Grouse Haven private hunting lodge in northern Michigan. And right to 1987, on Fred's last hunt anywhere in Grouse Haven, right near Rose City, Michigan, where Fred was already, walking around with an oxygen bottle. And then he died that next April of 1988. And my fascination, love, and admiration and adulation for the man just exploded in an emotional piece of music called Fred Bear.
Oh, absolutely.
That I just recorded for Henrietta. And those of us that loved bow hunting all loved Fred Bear. And that song was such a bonding soundtrack to our love of the outdoors, our love of archery, the love of Fred Bear, that literally has become the soundtrack in a couple million pickup trucks around the country come October every year. And I feel absolutely gifted by God to have been at the right place at the right time, that my dad was already a bow hunter, introduced me to Fred, and I got to hunt on Fred's very last walk in the wild side on earth, and that song as a musician unleashed in my soul and couldn't be stopped. It's really a complete package, man.
Well, I hope it's a long time from now, but I've already requested that be played at my funeral.
I'm thinking.
But I hope it's a long time from now. But I hope but seriously, as a hunter, not just a bow hunter, as an outdoors lover.
Sure.
I remember when the first time I heard Fred Bear, I'm like, finally we got a song. You know, it's like we really got a song that we can latch on to.
A hunting song.
Yeah, a hunting song that we can really
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's intense and spirited and has soul and it's tight. And the musicians really play. It's awesome.
There I was, back in the wild again, and I felt right at home where I belong. I had that feeling coming over me again, just like it happened so many times before. Yeah. The spirit of the woods is like an old good friend. Makes me feel warm and good inside. And I knew his name, and it was good to see him again. 'Cause in the wind he's still alive.